Alright, I want to go ahead and start off by saying, please forgive me for the sound quality and generally how I sound in general. I'm kind of dealing with a bit of sinus issues and sickness right now, so I'm sure I don't sound the greatest. And I'm recording in my bedroom, which is adjacent to a street, so I'm sure you're going to hear cars passing by, things of that nature. I'm gonna be honest, I never thought that I would ever end up making a video like this again because well, really, I've been trying to focus on other life issues, and if I ever made videos, I would want it to be more towards a new direction that I've been thinking about that include sketches and gameplays and basically making an actual channel that's not based off of rants. But with the announcement of the new Nintendo Switch and the reveal videos and everything else, I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on a few things because I see a lot of people hyped up for it, and that's great, and I see a lot of criticisms, and that's understandable. But I see a lot of people who are still pushing the same rhetoric of, Nintendoomed and everything else, which is. I mean, people are going to do that. People are going to be assholes. People are going to refuse to look at things objectively because it's easier to pick on Nintendo because that's what they've been doing for the past years. I understand that. But there are a lot of cases here, there are a lot of points being made that are just. They're generally. They don't make sense to me in the fact that, for one, like everyone's saying the Nintendo Switch has a shitty lineup, when in fact they've already got 5 titles announced for launch and a multitude of games that are announced for the first year alone, plus all of the, as always, all of the classic games that you can play like they've been doing on all their other consoles for the past 10 years. Meanwhile, back in 2013, when the Xbox One launched and the PS3 launched, things weren't quite like that. With the PS3, they had, if I recall, they didn't have any games that you could play at launch. They had two really good games I can't even seem to recall that you were able to play like 2 months later when they were released. The PS4, if I recall, started with no games whatsoever, and the Xbox One started out with Forza. That's it. Eventually, they also had Titanfall and Halo, but for a while, the Xbox One was just Forza. So, in comparison, that alone, I think that the Switch already has a very decent start for current gen consoles. And even not comparing, it's got a decent start, but I do generally think that is. I really think that when people make that point, they're just looking for another reason to bash on Nintendo because, it's the easy thing to do. It's what everyone's doing. It's the cool thing to do. It's funny. It's fun. There are some genuine complaints that I can understand, like the whole online issue. I think Nintendo still hasn't really learned what they're doing with online. They, I've only heard rumors. I haven't actually seen myself. People are saying they're getting rid of Miiverse, which would be one of the dumbest things they could do. Miiverse was actually a very, very cool idea. I still use it on my 3DS a lot. I know a lot of people who use it. It's just genuinely fun to have around. But paid online, one of the biggest issues I've got so far is everyone's talking about how, oh, it's going to be $60 and they're going to do nothing with it. Like, we don't know what the price is going to be yet. Knowing Nintendo, it could be the $60, it could be $70, it could be $10. It seems like you're making a big deal about it before you even know what it's going to be. Now, I can understand being upset about their free games because of the way they're doing it. Basically, they're going to be giving you a free game for a month, a free classic game that you could download pretty much anywhere as a ROM. And then at the end of the month, instead of letting you keep that game, they're going to take it away. Which I think is kind of stupid the way they're doing it. Whereas with PlayStation or Xbox, they'd give you that game, and if you don't have the service anymore, you can't access the game. But that game is still yours no matter what. But at the same time, they don't necessarily owe you that game, I guess is what I'm saying. What I want to say. I still think it's a bad way to do things. I can't necessarily support it, but at the end of the day, it's a bit of a non issue in the fact that they're still technically giving you that free game for that month. it's not something they have to do. It's not something PlayStation or Xbox has to do. They all do it because, well, honestly, if anything, they do it because it gives you extra incentive to pay for their online, but it's not something they have to do. I still think that if they're going to do it, they should do it the way that PlayStation and Xbox does. But ultimately, that's kind of a non-issue. Another issue a lot of people are talking about is the internal memory of 32 gigs, which, on the one hand, as a current-gen console, in most cases, I would think that's a really bad way to start out. But the two things you have to take into consideration is, one, this is the first release of the system, and like with all systems on their first release, they're going to have a smaller internal memory. Just like with the PS4, it granted 500 gigs doesn't seem like a smaller internal memory, but I have a friend who went with the PS4. He got it with the 500 gigs internal memory, and within 2 months he had to upgrade because all of his games are digital. So after like five or so big games, he had to upgrade because that doesn't hold as much as you think it would. All consoles starting out, for the most part, if you buy them, their internal memory, if you're going mostly digital, you will have to upgrade that. And you can upgrade with the Switch because it is SD card compatible, and it is compatible up to 2 terabytes if I recall reading correctly. So it's not as big an issue as it seems there, but in addition, you have to take into account this console is 50% gaming tablet. It's not like it's going to have an internal storage memory of 500 gigs like the PS4. It's crazy enough that we have iPhones that can handle 64 gigs internally. You have to take into account that the majority of this console is not a console, it's a tablet, which is what allows it to be portable and taken on the go. That's also why the specs are as low as they are, and the specs are still pretty high for a gaming tablet, and they're enough to keep up with the current gen. Yes, I understand there are people who buy games for specs. I don't understand why that's all they buy it for, because you can have 4K definition, the best internal processor in the world, and if the games aren't fun, it's basically an expensive paperweight. But my point being, one thing people aren't taking into account, this isn't just a console, it's a console that's mostly, it's at least 50% tablet. And that tablet is not going to run as powerful as a console that's basically a small computer. And I know I'm kind of leading into these points one by one, not flowing quite so well, but that's because this is unscripted. This is a video I didn't plan on making. It was kind of spur of the moment, but at the end of the day, I know most of the comments I'm going to get on this are probably something along the lines of Nintendo and things like that, because how dare I be excited for something that looks cool if it's Nintendo that puts it out. But I'm not saying that you can't be apprehensive. I'm not saying that you can't be excited. Don't believe me, don't get me wrong. I am not in any way, shape, or form. I have complete faith in Nintendo's ability to fuck up a good thing. I hate to admit it, but they've been the best at that lately. I would say it's Xbox, but in order for Xbox to be the best at something, they'd have to do something first, which isn't a jab. I wish it was a jab. It's not. Xbox just hasn't done anything in the past few years that's worth noting. But, again, I'm not saying you can't be apprehensive. Believe it or not, I am myself. I'm still very excited, though, because if this console takes off, if it's good, if it does everything it promises to, it can very likely change the way that we as a consumer group, we as a demographic, developers, game designers, everyone worldwide, it can change the way that we look at gaming. Because if this takes off, Nintendo's not going to be the only one doing it. I almost guarantee if this works, everyone's going to be looking at some kind of a way to implement that. Even if it's not a full console, even if it's just a handheld, that you can also use as a more powerful console, there is a good chance that there are companies all over that are going to want to find a way to implement that. And that's exciting. This is revolutionary technology, and it's incredibly simple. But I understand there are issues with it just like there are with any new technology. But, and I've got nothing against criticism. What bothers me are the people who are so unwilling to get out of the past to look at this objectively. Everyone who's bashing on it because Nintendo's doing it, so obviously it's going to be bad. The same Nintendoomed comments. It's as bad as PS3 has no games, moving to PS4 has no games, if it weren't for the fact that for the first few months, PS4 really had no games. I understand it could be bad. Look at the Wii U. The Wii U promised to be something that it wasn't. I understand being apprehensive. All I'm saying is maybe give it a chance.